Hi, welcome to Ms. Richardson's U.S. History 5-Minute Lectures. This information is U.S. Notes 5.4, Civil Rights Protests Part 2. It includes information that aligns with the first section on your unit study guide. Now remember, use your study guide to help you take notes, pause when you need to, write down any questions you have and bring those to class, and rewatch if you want. Let's go ahead and get started. I've already told you about many civil rights protests and actions that ultimately helped to change society and politics in the U.S. While most early groups focused on nonviolent action to gain change, they were not always met with nonviolence in return. You probably already know that Martin Luther King was assassinated. Well, that happened in 1968. But there were also other civil rights leaders who were assassinated as well. Malcolm X in 1965 and Medgar Evers, an active member of the NAACP, in 1963. These are not the only ones, but they are some of the most famous. Evers had actually he was an attorney, he was involved in court cases, and he'd been involved in both the Emmett Till court case, and he had helped James Meredith get into Ole Miss. So that's how he gained popularity. Another example of the horrible violence against peaceful protesters was the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963. This bombing, where 15 sticks of dynamite, was left in front of the church, killed 4 young girls who were preparing for a choir concert. The oldest were 14, the youngest was 11. 4 KKK members committed the crime. One was charged finally in 1977, 2 in 2001 and then 2002, and 1 actually died in the 90s and was never charged with murder or any kind of terrorist action. So this is seen as a pivotal event that angered all Americans and gained national support for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That was national legislation that required equal treatment, regardless of race. Another event in '64 that also helped gain support for the legislation is known as Mississippi Burning. 3 college students working to register black voters in Mississippi, they were working for CORE, were murdered by local KKK members. 2 of the students were white, 1 was black. The FBI actually stepped in to investigate because the state refused to do so, and later they were also the ones to prosecute the case because, again, the state refused to prosecute. There's even a movie based on this case called Mississippi Burning. So there were 18 accused in this crime, and only 7 were found guilty. None of them were found guilty of murder, so they had very light sentences. This, along with the Birmingham church bombing, helped to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In addition, this case helped create even more support for changes to voting in the South, changes that eventually spurred the passage of the 24th Amendment, which was ratified in 1964. Although the 24th Amendment was ratified and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was signed into law by President Johnson, the violence still didn't end in the civil rights fight. The following year, 1965, Bloody Sunday happened. This event, also known as the Selma to Montgomery March, occurred when 600 peaceful marchers were attacked by police as they marched in support of equal voting rights. A second march occurred just days later, led by Martin Luther King, and a third after that. Images from the march enraged Americans and helped to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And like Mississippi Burning, there's now a movie based on these events, Selma. This is just a small sample of the actions, protests, and events that were a part of the civil rights movement throughout the 60s. The nonviolent actions of the protesters gained them national support, helping to change legislation nationally. However, some individuals were not willing to wait for that to happen because this took a long time. And as time went on, more aggressive civil rights groups began to emerge. We'll look at these other groups in our next set of notes. So this is the end of U.S. Notes 5.4. Bring any questions you have to class, and I will see you there.